All right, let's jump right in. We're diving deep into the end of an era. This is a story that kicks off with a patriarch's last breath, and then, believe it or not, explodes into a literal war over his grave. We're talking legacy, a rivalry that just won't die, and an oath that's going to bind an entire nation for centuries. This is the final charge of the sons of Jacob.
And you gotta ask, what was left inside these men? Well, it was this potent mix of prophecy, guilt, and a promise. A promise that would eventually lead their descendants into both slavery and glory. And it all starts with a dying man's final wish. So picture this. We're in Egypt. Jacob is 147 years old, lying on his deathbed. The time for final words has come. And let me tell you, these words are going to carve the very future of a nation.
Joseph brings his two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim, for a blessing. He does everything right. He places his firstborn Manasseh at Jacob's right hand, for that main blessing. But Jacob, even though his eyes are failing him, he sees the future perfectly. He crosses his hands. Deliberately, he puts his right hand on the younger son, Ephraim. Joseph tries to correct him, like, "Dad, what are you doing?" But Jacob's mind is made up. He's unshakable. The blessing is set. The future just got turned on its head. And with that done, he calls for all his sons, all 12 of them. The men who are about to become the 12 tribes of Israel, they all gather round their father's bed to hear their destinies spoken into existence. And these prophecies, man, they land like hammer blows, each one delivered with just absolute finality. Reuben, the firstborn, condemned for a past sin. Simeon and Levi, because of their violent tempers, they're cursed to be scattered among the other tribes. But then you get to Judah, and his line is the line of kings, promised the scepter of rule itself. And of course, Joseph, the favorite, is blessed with strength and favor. Every single word is a seed being planted, for better or for worse. And after commanding his sons, after setting the future in motion, Jacob's work is done. His final act is complete. He just pulls his feet into the bed, and the last of the great patriarchs is gone. But his death is about to set in motion an epic of its own. So Joseph, who is basically the second most powerful man in Egypt, is now bound by an oath to bury his father back in Canaan. And he is definitely not going alone. For 70 straight days, all of Egypt mourns Jacob. Now, this isn't some quiet family affair. This is a full-blown state-mandated event. In fact, Pharaoh himself declares that anyone who doesn't join the funeral procession will die. This isn't just a send-off for a patriarch. It's a send-off fit for a king. What's just mind-blowing here is the sheer scale of this thing. This is way more than a funeral. It's a projection of absolute power. Jacob's body lies on a bier made of pure gold. Joseph puts a crown on his head and a scepter in his hand. And their escort? Oh, just the entire might of the Egyptian army. Chariots, horsemen, all of them armed for war. They even have servants going ahead of them, strewing the road with perfume. It's this incredible mix of mourning and military might. So when this massive armed company reaches the border of Canaan, you can imagine the locals are terrified. They just see an army on the march. And they name the place Abul Mizraim, which means the grievous mourning of the Egyptians. Little do they know that mourning is about to turn into a war. Because as the procession finally reaches its destination, the cave of Machpelah, they find their path is blocked. And it's blocked by a very old enemy. Is Esau, Jacob's twin brother, with his sons and his people. I mean, think about it. A rivalry born in the womb is now standing at the door of their ancestral tomb. He's claiming the burial cave is his. Joseph fires back, saying, no, Jacob legally bought the rights to it years ago, and we have the records back in Egypt to prove it. He even sends his brother Naphtali, who's said to be as fast as a deer, to run all the way back to get the documents. But Esau isn't about to wait for some paperwork. His men attack. And as this battle just explodes, there's one guy, Chushim, the son of Dan, who's a little apart from the fray. He's deaf, so he can't hear all the legal arguments being shouted back and forth. All he sees is his great uncle disrespecting his grandfather's honor, and he asks this simple, piercing question that just cuts through all the noise of battle. And without even waiting for an answer, Chushim just charges, straight through the heart of the battle, sword in hand, and with one single swift motion, he decapitates Esau. Just like that. The ancient rivalry, the feud that literally started in the womb, is over with a single brutal strike.
After that, the sons of Jacob, fueled by this righteous fury, they overwhelm their cousins and finally lay their father to rest in his rightful tomb. So, with their father buried and their enemies defeated, the brothers head back to Egypt. But the external battle is over, and now an internal one is about to begin. You see, their father Jacob had been their shield. Now that he's gone, the brothers are absolutely terrified. The memory of what they did, selling Joseph into slavery all those decades ago, it all comes rushing back. They're convinced his vengeance is finally coming. So what do? They make up a lie. They send a messenger to tell Joseph that their father's dying wish was for him to forgive them. But Joseph, he doesn't need a command from a dead man to forgive. When he hears their plea, he just weeps. Not with anger, but with compassion. He doesn't see their evil act as some personal wound anymore. He sees it as this painful but necessary part of a much bigger divine plan. He comforts them. He promises to provide for them, for their kids. And just like that, the cycle of vengeance is broken by this profound act of grace. So years go by, Joseph lives a long life, he even sees his great-grandchildren. But just like his father before him, he knows his time in Egypt is just temporary. At 110 years old, Joseph gathers his family for one last charge. He prophesies that God will one day lead them out of Egypt and back to the promised land. And he makes them swear a solemn oath. When that day comes, you do not leave my body behind. You have to carry my bones with you. It's a tangible link to their past and a promise for their future. And so, when Joseph dies, he isn't buried in some grand Egyptian tomb. No, he's embalmed and he's placed in a coffin right there by the river. His body becomes this silent, ever-present reminder of a future promise, an anchor binding the children of Israel to a destiny they haven't even seen yet. And this is the turning point. With Joseph gone, the era of favor and protection is over. A new pharaoh rises, one who doesn't know Joseph, and the Egyptians, who were once allies, slowly become their masters. The shadow of servitude begins to fall. Which leaves us with this final thought. Joseph's last charge wasn't just a request. It was a test of faith and memory, passed down through generations of hardship. How long could a promise like that possibly survive? How long would a people, now falling into bondage, remember an oath they made to a man whose bones just lay waiting by the river?